Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name is Mark O'Brien, and today I'm joined by somebody who I saw for the very, very first time a number of years ago at the very first wrestling show I ever saw live in person. So, as part of a show that expanded my imagination to what wrestling could be. He's been somebody who has been consistently part of my wrestling experience, watching on TV from afar from a little old place called Dublin in Ireland. I'm joined by the one and the only Mr. Frankie Kazarian. Frankie, I tried to put you over as best I could there. How are you doing, sir?
You did a great job. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm doing very well. And uh, the show you're referencing, was that at the little boxing club
Yes, it was the
in
National
Dublin?
Stadium. Yeah, the National Stadium,
Okay.
2 nights in a row.
Yeah, was that I don't know if that was the first one. It was me and Chris Daniels against Chavo and Sean.
Correct. Yeah, that was
Okay.
2011. Yep.
I remember that exactly because that's one of the most insane crowds. That wasn't a huge building, but that crowd was electric. Like
It's
all night, and it was just the environment and the vibe was so cool. And like, yeah, I remember that night specifically for that reason.
it's incredible. Yeah, it's an old boxing arena with very low
Yeah.
ceilings, but they can fit in 3,000 people in the room. It goes back quite far.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There's a lot of wrestling promotions. Big one over in Ireland, Over the Top Wrestling (OTT). You find a
Yep.
lot of wrestlers from America, from TNA in particular, have a good relationship there. Come over, do
Yeah.
shows like that. So listen, it
It's
was
a
a huge.
great building. Great. That's a great wrestling venue, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a show that really expanded my imagination as to what wrestling could be, should be, or what I
Yeah.
presented on UK television up to that point. And again, even on top of that, watching on a Sunday night TNA Impact on Challenge TV in the wee hours of the morning as like a fucking 14-year-old through 18-year-old meant a huge amount to me. So listen, chatting to you does make a huge deal to me. But listen, I won't take up too much more of your time. Be very straight to the point. Listen, you've come back to TNA over the last several years. You came back to TNA at a point where the place you left seemingly was the place to be, and everybody else was trying to get there. Well, you were bucking the trend and you were leaving at that point. You were
Yeah.
trying to back yourself while you left a company where there was more people than people could count. You joined a brand that was synonymous with 2000s, 2010s. It was something that you helped build. It wasn't TNA at that point, but what did it feel like to come back to Impact Wrestling at that stage, first of all, in terms of being able to be your own man, make your own stamp, bucking the trend and following your gut instinct more than anything?
Yeah, it felt right. Again, I was at a point in my career where I needed to bet on myself, and I did. Um, I had, done some stuff with TNA the year before for Slammiversary, and I had actually become X Division champion and challenged Josh Alexander. So I'd spent some time in TNA while I was still with AEW, and just saw kind of the vibe of what was happening there and how incredible the locker room was, and just how they were gaining some momentum. And I thought, this feels like a place I should be again. And was able to, eventually, get out of my contract that I was under, and made one phone call and made it happen. And for once in my career, my timing was really good because since I came back, coincidentally, just everything TNA has been just on fire, trending upwards in every measurable metric. And it's really cool to be here, especially being a TNA OG, a guy that started here in 2003, and to see where we are right now. It's a lot of fun, a lot of positivity, and some cool stuff happening, and all gearing towards Bound for Glory, which is our biggest show of the year.
It's incredible, and even for like as I said before, for a guy who spent their kind of teenage years obsessing over TNA wrestling from the far side of the world, it's really cool to see not only like how much TNA's grown from then to now, but even in that short space of time, 5 or 6 years, when you come back in 2021, how it iterates to that time, even getting to the point where it becomes TNA again, and then
Yeah,
changes entirely again over the last year or so. Like, how has
yeah.
that transition? Because it feels like every year TNA goes through a whole new cycle, not just of talent, but rebranding. What are we? What do we stand for? And it seems to iterate and grow with every continuous motion.
Yeah, I mean, reverting back to the name TNA,
Mm.
that hit really hard. Like a lot of people, I mean, that was I nothing but positive feedback when we announced that, and that got people really excited. And a lot of fans that maybe had gone away kind of came back and were like, "Wow," because we're embracing what we are. We are TNA, through and through. So that was just one of the things that helped continue that momentum grow, and the acquisition of new talent over the last couple of years. Myself, you're talking about Mike Santana and Nick Nemeth, and
Mm.
Matt and Jeff Hardy, and all these guys, and the OGs, the Eddie Edwards, and Eric Young and Brian Myers and Moose and all the amazing knockouts. It's everything has worked. It's been a perfect storm to get us to where we are right now.
It's been incredible, and like it's funny you can kind of see behind you there, like it's almost the two titles you have over your shoulder kind of
Yeah,
encapsulate the kind of two journeys of Frankie Kazarian. Like your early days, you're synonymous with the Ultimate X division,
yeah,
tag team with Shazarian, Bad Influence, even doing things like
yeah.
Immortal, Fortune, all that kind of stuff. And now you're coming back and being your own man, kind of now the second ever TNA International Champion. But even at that, at the weekend there, Victory Road, the tie-in with El Macias for those of us who followed
Yeah,
TNA, Judas
yeah,
Macias, Father James Mitchell, all that kind of stuff. How
yeah,
cool is that even for you to kind of feel like this full circle moment coming back all the way around?
yeah. It's cool. I mean, look at having another singles title, especially this, being only the second guy to have this title. Uh, Very cool for my resume. Very cool to represent TNA right now, especially as the international champion.
Mhm.
And yeah, Judas Macias, it's, God, 10 years, 15 years ago, he was, creeping around our locker room and he was wreaking havoc and having these insane matches with guys like Abyss. And I even mixed it up with him a few times. So yeah, it's crazy, to see guys like that after all these years. And we having relationships with the companies in Mexico is also very important to us. And yeah, it's really cool. That's the good thing about being around so long is you get to see these guys again, that you haven't seen in sometimes a decade.
Yeah, and having all these different influences coming from a AAA and NXT, as we're about to touch on in a minute, and this rebranding of TNA, it feels like everything's almost at a perfect storm when you've got just the classic Victory Road pay-per-view, but you're also building towards what many of us had as like their tentpole pay-per-view every year. You got the 12th of October, you've got Bound for Glory. Like for those of us who grew up on the old Bound for Glory series and kind of
Yep.
know what Bound for Glory stood for and has stood for the last couple of years, but TNA hasn't probably had this much excitement, arguably ever at the minute, just in terms of the different channels and avenues globally. Like, how does it feel working towards this milestone event with so many different influences and so many different eyes on the product from so many different areas? How does it feel to be kind of in the middle of it at the moment?
It's great. This is what I always wanted as a professional wrestler,
Mm.
like I always wanted to be the guy. I always wanted to be like and just doing like media. Like I'm a guy that never says no. I'm thrilled to be on the roster when we're doing this well and we have with this much momentum and we're being talked about this much. I wear it as a badge of honor. Again, being a guy that was here in 2003 and seeing what it's become and seeing how hot it is and how talked about it is. It's very cool. I love being in the mix. I love being in the middle of it. You can't tell my story without talking about TNA, and vice versa. You can't tell the TNA story without talking about Frankie Kazarian. So we're kind of synonymous with one another, and I couldn't be prouder. I just again, my timing coming back to this company couldn't be better. I'm having the time of my life. I'm blessed to be in the greatest locker room right now in pro wrestling, with an incredible management team and people working hard behind the scenes to make this happen. And we're all working around the clock. Literally, when I say working around the clock towards Bound for Glory, people in our management department, the wrestlers, so much is being done to make this the biggest show it could possibly be.
And I think you're gonna have so many eyes from all around the world because of those different influences. I think from my part of the world, you're gonna have people tuning in on the new TNA app, TNA Plus. Like I'm an avid subscriber. I'm an avid fan from TNA from afar. Um, but the best thing about you coming back to TNA, I think, at this point is there was that lull period for like 10 plus years where TNA probably didn't get the exposure it deserved for the quality of product it's having on for various different reasons, trying to channels interest in wrestling generally. The people who are now tuning into TNA through your weekly show, through NXT, through AAA, and all these different influences can now go onto the TNA Plus app and they can say, you know what, I like the cut of this Frankie Kazarian's jib. I want to find
Yeah.
out what he's done at Bound for Glory previously. So if I'm a cold fan coming onto the TNA Plus app, I'm already excited about seeing what you've got going on of coming at Bound for Glory. What past Bound for Glory more memories rather should a fan dig into in the TNA Plus app from this part of the world?
Oh man, there's so many. Like the first one, obviously, I remember the Bound for Glory at 2007 was the basically the debut of the Knockouts division, which is looking back wildly important now.
Yeah.
You had like a 10 lady battle royal to crown the first knockout champion. Um, you know, I the Bound for Glory, I wrestled Speedball Mike Bailey, and I won the X Division title after many, many years of not being in the company. Is a good one. I mean, if I'm a wrestling fan, or if I'm a fan that just stumbled onto TNA on the TNA Plus app, I would watch them all in order. I think they get progressively better. Last year was an incredible Bound for Glory. I won the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. I got to referee the main event between Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry, and it was huge. And that was in Michigan. This year's going to be even bigger and better.
With like Bound for Glory on the horizon, there's so many cool things going on TNA television, but also on NXT television. What's this like uncharted territory been like for you? Like obviously a veteran in the wrestling space. Like how is this for you suddenly being able to appear on multiple television products on a weekly basis, multiple different sets of eyes with different probably awareness of your past, different levels of knowledge of
Sure.
wrestling generally. Like how cool does it be at this stage of your career to have that diverse exposure across multiple different fandoms, multiple different segments of the wrestling zeitgeist, as it were?
I say this all the time. We're living in unprecedented times because this crossover, if what we're calling that a crossover, didn't seem possible a decade ago. Like wrestling companies just traditionally did not work together, nor did they mention the other on their networks, or on their broadcasts. Now we have NXT presence on our show. We have TNA presence on NXT. There's going to be a huge Invasion show. It's for a wrestling fan, it's a really cool time. I grew up a comic book fan, and this is DC and Marvel. It's and Hopefully wrestling fans appreciate that. It's really cool. And for me, being a guy that started in 1998, back when all of this was taboo, it's cool to not only see it but to be doing it.
Wrestling can be the most amazing space, can also be the weirdest space as well. To be able to
Yeah.
see these kind of crossovers, people being willing to cooperate and work with each other across business lines, across different wrestling lines as well. It's hugely exciting for me as a 33-year-old fan watching from afar. Must be incredibly exciting for you as a wrestler now at this stage of the game as well. But for those fans of this part of the world who are now going to be subscribing to TNA Plus, because obviously they've listened to you here today, they're excited by what's going to happen on the TNA Plus app, excited for Bound for Glory. They're going to be watching NXT tomorrow night, hoping for Invasion continue this angle what you guys pursued last week. What can fans of this part of the world look forward to if they're going to be subscribing to TNA Plus and specifically for Bound for Glory?
I mean, right now is a great time because we're just weeks away. If you haven't seen our shows lately, catch up, see what's going on. I mean, yeah, talk about all the momentum we have going into Bound for Glory, but then you also throw in this wrinkle of this NXT essentially war going on. There's a lot happening. There's a lot going on, and you can catch all that on the TNA Plus app. Like it's all there. Even like exclusive stuff. If you want to hear guys' thoughts behind the scenes, there's a lot of really cool exclusive content, like the immersed shows that are done just so very well. There's so much content on there, and like if you're not familiar with what's going on, right now is a great time to check it out on the TNA Plus app, but do it quickly because we only got a couple weeks till Bound for Glory. So get caught up, and it's easy to do. If I can do it on this thing, you can do it. Trust me, because I'm not as technically savvy as most of these kids are out there.
Well, Frankie, listen, as somebody who's followed your career for over 20 years at this point, and somebody who's followed TNA for over 20 years at this point, I want to thank you very, very much for your time. I couldn't be more excited for what the future has in front of you. I'm delighted you're getting your flares now across multiple different avenues, getting a huge amount of eyes on you and your career and your abilities going forward now. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you wishing you all the best.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for having me.
No problem.